I made a video yesterday about Josh Reynolds and it being a void left by him, and that Donovan Peoples-Jones was expected to kind of compete for that number 3, number 4 role. So I have a question for you guys today. With the training camp being on hiatus, the Detroit Lions are off to do joint practices with the New York Giants, so we'll have information coming about that next week. Is it possible that the Detroit Lions knew that Josh Reynolds was not going to be on this team? Now, I'm not trying to call out Brad Holmes or anything like that. I just want to have a legit conversation with the fan base. So put in the comments below. So I'm thinking about what Dan Campbell said yesterday, said about Donovan Peoples-Jones. They expected him to compete for the 3rd or 4th spot. Now, that might have been after the departure of Josh Reynolds. But we all knew that Josh Reynolds was on the last year of his deal, and I kind of figured maybe he would want more money. Just because, to me, I know this is going to be a hot take. I think he deserved it. I think $14 million for 2 years is not a bad deal at all for what Josh Reynolds gave to us. We like to talk about age, but if your production remains the same or gets better or slightly falls off, no matter how old you are, is age really a problem? So I got to thinking yesterday, did the Detroit Lions plan, was Donovan Peoples-Jones, because let's be honest, at the trade deadline, I myself am banging the table for an edge rusher. We all thought the Detroit Lions were going to bring an edge rusher here. Next thing you know, Brad Holmes gets up there and he says, we traded for Donovan Peoples-Jones and blah, 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 right? Looked like he was disappointed, but the Donovan Peoples-Jones trade literally came out of nowhere. What? We traded for Donovan Peoples-Jones? Why and where did this come from? Now, we were thinking about potentially the exit for Marvin Jones, because Marvin Jones had exited the team at that point. But you've got guys on the practice squad. Did we really need to trade for a wide receiver, give up trade assets? You had guys that were free agents that maybe you could have picked up that are still working out. I'm not saying I would have taken Jarvis Landry, but he's got to work out with somebody coming up very soon. But was the trade for Donovan Peoples-Jones, was it more of a Marvin Jones left, we need a backup plan, or was it, you know what, Donovan Peoples-Jones, we're planning for a Josh Reynolds departure? Now, Brad Holmes said that Josh Reynolds was a priority, and I believe him, but I also know that whatever GM spew out, it's GM talk. What GM talk is we don't know, right? Their job is to be deceptive, both him and Dan Campbell. But because GMs run the team and they are the nitty gritty of the team behind the scenes, even when the season's going on, that's why you don't see much of Brad Holmes during the season. His time is the off season because he's behind the scenes making things happen. Every so often you might get an interview or an appearance or a viral clip of him yelling on an elevator, but you don't really see him because he's doing things that his time is past in front of the camera. Now he's behind the camera. And I'm thinking, whatever they say, you have to take literally with a grain of salt. When it comes to, here it is, we drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. I knew that we were trading DeAndre Swift at that point, but I also said if we didn't, we literally would have the best running back room in the league with DeAndre Swift, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery. There's no doubt about it. Drafted Jahmyr Gibbs day 1. By day 3, DeAndre Swift was an Eagle. Jeff Okudah was essentially, quote, in his rookie year, end quote. That's what Brad Holmes said. A few weeks later, we traded him away. Before the 5th-year option even became a thing, I think we traded him away. It was either right before or right after. So I say all that to say, is GM talk, you got to take it with a grain of salt. So was Donovan Peoples-Jones brought in here to replace Marvin Jones, who had to take a leave of absence from the team, and I hope he's doing well. Have heard nothing from him or about him since that moment, so I hope he's okay. Was he brought in for that, or was he brought in as a contingency plan to a potential Josh Reynolds departure? Because I feel like it's 50-50. I feel like it's straight down the middle. You signed Donovan Peoples-Jones to a 1-year, $2 million deal. Josh Reynolds wanted 2 years, $14 million. So that is a $12 million difference. You've got a guy that's 24. You've got a guy that's 29. Same kind of skill set, same size. Josh is a little taller by an inch. Donovan Peoples is 12 pounds heavier. Was Josh Reynolds really a priority? Or was Donovan Peoples-Jones brought in here to fill that void. Again, I think it's 50-50. I think 50% was for Marvin Jones because Josh Reynolds was still on the roster. And I think the other 50% was for a potential contract dispute or non-agreement between Josh Reynolds. I think honestly, Josh Reynolds, I'm not going to hold him everything he did for the Detroit Lions in the 2.5 years he were here. I'm not going to take that discredit that for a bad game with the NFC title game. I'm not going to do that. He's not the only one who had a bad game. I'm also not going to pretend that Dan Campbell didn't mean what he said. When he said yesterday, Josh Reynolds, he said, was somebody going to step up and replace that production, or were they going to have a committee do it? Usually when we hear about committees, we're talking about either running back or pass rush. If you have to have a committee to do what one person was doing, that means that one person has equal to or greater than the talent of those multiple individuals. So if you have an Aiden Hutchinson, but by committee, you need a Charles Harris, a Romeo Okwara, and Julian Okwara, there you go. That's production that we're going to miss. So I think that, again, this is not a knock on Brad Holmes. I know a lot of y'all get real sensitive when I start talking about your GM. Mine too. Okay. When I say your GM, I'm specifically talking about the bathwater drinkers, man, the truthers. Like, this guy, can't do anything wrong. Of course, he's the greatest GM that I've seen, and I will admit that. But Trinity Benson, can we talk about that? Can we talk about Riley Patterson? What are we doing there? Just on, off, trade, cut. What are we doing, right? There's been some mistakes, but overall, Brad Holmes is the best GM that we've seen, that I've ever seen. I don't even know who the GM was in 1992, right? And I believe Brad is going to get better as well. I do think he's put this team in a position to win. So you heard those words, but at the same time, I'm going to say what needs to be said. Was Donovan Peoples-Jones for the present or the future if they couldn't come to a deal with Josh Reynolds, which they should have? The Lions offense could take a drop. If we have to have receiver by committee, it could take a drop. Every time Josh Reynolds caught the ball for like the first 7 or 8 games, and I know this is a broken record right now, first down, touchdown, first down, touchdown, first down, touchdown. Where are we going to get that production from? Is Donovan Peoples-Jones going to do it? Is Antoine Green going to do it? Is Dereese Fontaine going to do it? Is Maurice Alexander going to do it? Or is somebody who's not on his team going to do it? That's why I'm such a big advocate of Robert Woods. There's a connection there that has been lost with the departure of Josh Reynolds. Donovan Peoples-Jones, even if he had a great year, that connection is not what Josh Reynolds, and you got to understand, those 7 games that Josh played in Tennessee were the only 7 games of his NFL career that he did not play with Jared Goff. That's a big void to fill. So put in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think that Donovan Peoples-Jones was more of an in-season Marvin Jones filler? Do you think it was 50% like I do? Or do you think something totally different? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. We did hit 21.3. I almost got ahead of myself. On the way to 21.4 with the hope of by the end of the month hitting 22,000. My goal for the end of the season is 30,000 at least. And if the NFL or YouTube is not blocking our live streams, we can have much more than that. Stay tuned for the watch party information, the streaming information, all my schedule I'll put out and make sure that you guys know exactly what's going on. You guys are awesome. This channel is made possible by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.